So fecal transplants now are mainly done for C. difficile infection in patients who have recurrent infections with C. difficile and that are resistant to multiple other medications. And there's been an incredible response to fecal transplants, but the current state of the art is finding a donor, that meaning the patient has to find a donor who's healthy, that person is screened, and then they have to come and give a fresh stool sample that gets ground up and then gets put usually into a solution, and then there's a colonoscopy is the usual technique that reintroduces this solution through the colon to repopulate with new bacteria. However, there's some obvious problems with this. There's finding the donors. There's potential, transmission of harmful bacteria that could occur during this process. There's sort of this whole task of getting fresh stool and grinding it up. It's not all that appealing to anybody. And we don't really know which bacteria are responsible. And so there's work being done now to look at lyophilized product preparations, which are freeze-dried basically, and for pill preparations. And if you could get a pill that contained those bacteria, then you could avoid the colonoscopy portion of it. And if you could get a preparation that could get put in pill form that's not dependent on a donor, that we know has a safety profile, that would be preferred. And ideally, you'd figure out which bacteria do you need. Yeah, so the human microbiome, I think we don't understand more than we do understand at this point. And many diseases in gastroenterology we've long felt have been due to immunologic problems or functional problems. And only recently has there been recognition by Western-trained physicians that bacteria in our guts play an important role in this. And so there's really a relationship, there is importance to who we are and our immune systems and our function of our GI tract, but there's also a relationship to the bacteria that are within us as well as what we eat and the activities that we do. And these are all related to health, or good health and poor health. In the microbiome, we're beginning to realize in other states, so I already spoke about C. difficile infection, that's sort of a no-brainer. There's a dysbiosis with the wrong bacteria that are present and that we're just trying to correct that. But there are other conditions, and the one I think of is inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, and colitis that we've mainly thought has been an immunologic problem, but actually it's probably the immune system reacting to something in the environment. And what are those triggers? They're probably bacteria that are the triggers for that immune system. So it's not just simply the immune system, it's the bacteria that are in us. And then, as I talked about before, is that we need to figure out which bacteria are the ones that are causing these triggers. And if we can do that, we can figure out how they are actually causing the inflammation. Are there receptors that we can target? Are there other therapies we can do? Are there other bacteria that we can transplant? And it's probably across a range of diseases that the microbiome is actually really important. And it may be, even pancreatic cancer could be related to it and other diseases. So we need to start thinking in a much broader way. We need to try to understand the microbiome. As I said, my understanding is very little at this point, and I think that's why this symposium is going to be so helpful, to try to bring out what is the state of the art now, and what are the directions of research that are immediately accessible, and then where can we go in the long term. But my personal belief is a combination of all these things.